And now, the girls from Mu Kappa! Women!
Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C-Dot that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. Well, with Christmas coming to an end, I'd like to end this year off with a movie that seems to get more and more terrible with each new adaptation. These are my reviews on the Black Christmas movies.
And now, the girls from Mu Kappa! Women!
The original movie was directed in 1974 by then upcoming director Bob Clark and was released by Ambassador Film Distributors for Canada and Warner Brothers internationally. The movie was one of the first slasher films to be based on the urban legend of the babysitter and the man upstairs, where she would get obscene phone calls coming from inside the house that she was babysitting, who would then proceed to kill her and the children she was babysitting. It truly was a unique premise that has held up in the horror genre, as the movie helped create many more movies with a similar premise, including When a Stranger Calls and Halloween. Unfortunately, the movie has sadly been dragged through the mud over the past several decades because of two of the worst remakes that I mentioned earlier this year. The first was made in 2006 by Dimension Films and MGM and was directed by Glenn Morgan, who also directed the remake of Willard. The second remake, made in 2019 by Blumhouse Productions and Universal Pictures, and was directed by Sofia Takal, who's a more well-known actress and only got into directing in recent years. Both of these movies, in my opinion, have ruined the greatness of the original, but have done so in different ways that I will be revealing in this video. But first, let's discuss what many people consider the first holiday slasher film.
And now, the girls from Mu Kappa! Women!
The original film stars Olivia Hussey and Margot Kidder as a group of sorority sisters who receive obscene phone calls from a deranged killer who hides inside of the attic and kills off the sisters one by one. The main attraction of this movie is how subtle and mysterious the movie is. We never learn anything about the killer other than his name and the outline of his body, which is what led to John Carpenter in creating Michael Myers for Halloween. In fact, this movie has more in connection with the creation of Halloween than what most people are led to believe, as in an interview with Bob Clark, he stated that if he were to do a sequel, it would have been similar to the events of Halloween. The movie also helped many cinematographers create new and improved shots for the time period. For example, the scene where Billy is sneaking into the sorority house was done by using handmade equipment, since the devices didn't exist at the time, with the camera crew having to build these common-day items out of wood and nails. While I can't say that this movie changed the way we look at horror movies, I can say that it did help improve on the quality of how horror movies were made and how we can learn from them by their craft-making skills.
And now, the girls from Mu Kappa! Women!
The first remake follows a group of sorority sisters who are preparing to leave for the Christmas holidays. However, a deranged killer named Billy escapes from his mental institution and heads to the sorority house, which it turns out was his original home. This movie might seem like it has a good premise, but adds way too much of its own material that makes it stick out like a sore thumb. Most of the changes come from many of the character changes, such as giving the killer a face and a backstory that involves incest and having his skin turn yellow because he was born with a rare liver disease. The writers also decided to add a second killer that's in the house already who may or may not be in cahoots with the first killer, that it almost turns this film into a weird versus style movie. The rest of the cast are disjointed and downright unlikable, as the film makes them too whiny or too innocent that you can't relate to them at all and just want the killers to end their lives. Much of these changes can be related to the producer's massive involvement in making these changes, as, in my opinion, they probably wanted to make something similar to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, as that was a very successful movie and they wanted to do the same thing that film did. Which doesn't work, as both of the original films have different tones and styles that don't fit well when you compare the two. I do feel that if the movie was handled by the director and his crew, it could have turned out better and would have been a much better movie. I don't think that it would have been as good as the original, but it would have been a heck of a lot better than what we did get.
And now, the girls from Mu Kappa! Women!
This movie follows a group of sorority sisters at a university who are on a crusade to have a fraternity held accountable for the actions caused by some of their older members. However, a mysterious killer stalks and kills the other members of the sorority, especially the ones who have been attacking certain members of the university. This is the main movie I wanted to cover the most because I'm getting sick and tired of seeing these empowering movies that don't empower anyone and instead mock and demean everyone involved. In this movie, there is one character who goes around the university acting like everything she does is so important and world-changing that she doesn't even think about what she is saying and just believes that others will have to agree with her. But in reality, she would be kicked out of the university and banned from attending any other schools because of the things she does. She makes this movie unbearable to sit through and made me hate every moment that she was on screen, and this is one of our main characters. Which leads me to the other main reason this film doesn't work. It has nothing to do with the original movie. Yes, it does take place at the same type of location as the original film, but the plot has nothing in common with the original. Billy isn't mentioned in this movie at all and is replaced with a cult fraternity that brainwashes other members because they feel that men are made to keep women in line, and when they get out of line, the men are sent out to set them back into place by killing these women. Hell, they send other members to another sorority that wasn't even focused on in the movie until this point. This whole third act comes right out of nowhere and has nothing to do with anything that happens in the original. In the original film was nothing more than a home invasion movie set with a serial killer story. That's it. This film, on the other hand, is a patchwork of many other horror films that only connect to the Black Christmas setting rather than its plot. I honestly think that this was supposed to be a satire on the sorority slasher film genre made in the 80s, and they just slapped the title of Black Christmas on it because they wanted a theme to go with this piece of garbage.
And now, the girls from Mu Kappa!
Women!
I do sympathize with people who hate remakes, as most of the time these remakes with one of two things in mind. One is that producers want to make money off of a popular property, and number two is that someone wants to make a movie in their own image, so they decide to take something unrelated and use that as the focus of the movie. I don't believe this is always the case, but it has become apparent with these more modern remakes, especially these two, to one of the most classic horror films of all time. Overall, if you want to check out any of these movies, just watch the original, as it's the best one and something I think people can watch over and over again. I give these movies an 8, 6, and 1 out of 10. Well, thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, have a safe and Merry Christmas, and hopefully a Happy New Year. Good night, everyone.
And now, the girls from Mu Kappa!
Women! Do